DeBrusk, the Detroit Destroyer, as his hat-trick helps the Canucks beat the Red Wings 5-4 in overtime. Lots to get to on this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios, downtown Vancouver, on this Sunday afternoon. 5-4, the Canucks in overtime defeat the Detroit Red Wings. Back-to-back OT victories for this hockey club that's now 4-1 on this road trip and 13-7-3 on the season. Lots to get to. Jeff Patterson joined this time by Patrick Johnson of the Province and Post Media. I hope you've got a couple of hours here to help me break this thing down. This was about 5 games in one, the way it twisted and all sorts of talking points and storylines. But the bottom line is, it is another victory for this undermanned Vancouver Hockey Club, and we'll jump into all of it after I tell you that Rink Wide's brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use the code NATION when opening on account. All right, you tell me. Where are we going to start? I guess we have to start at the end with Jake DeBrusk. What an afternoon. First Canuck to 10. There's the answer. We wondered who would be the first to get the double digits.
Of all people, too.
Yeah. 9 games without a goal to start the season. People were wondering and grumbling. And this guy put this team on his back this afternoon. A couple on power play. And then in overtime, quick release, too. Snaps it past Ville Husso and calls ball game at 5-4. So good on the Canucks. They find a way when it looked like maybe this one was slipping away from them.
Absolutely wild. You're absolutely right. I mean, the DeBrusk element, the DeBrusk Suter, like I was just going over the messages I sent you during the game. Who's the unsung hero of this team? Kevin Lankinen maybe not having his best game, but also some defensive breakdowns, but they totally outplayed the Red Wings. Like, it's just, what is this game? It was absolutely wild. Wonderful way to start your Sunday. I know people are still confused that it's all 12:34 as I'm saying this. That a really fun start. A beautiful Sunday, wonderful weather outside, beautiful day, beautiful effort. Everything's great, Jeff.
Well, it was funny because first period kind of, I think, represented what we thought might, an early start, bit of a sluggish start to the hockey game. Canucks give up the first goal. We've seen that a billion times already this season. That doesn't seem to matter. I will say part of their secret sauce, and I did tweet this out because it's something I've been charting. They've given up the first goal 14 times in 23 games, but they've fallen behind 2-0 only 4 times. So they get the saves required until they're able to sort of stabilize and get that next goal. And one of the storylines coming into this game, Pat, was the fact that the Red Wings penalty kill is atrocious. We've all watched this and lived this with the Canucks a couple of seasons ago. Their penalty kill on home ice in the mid-50s. They gave up 3 power play goals to the Devils in a 5-4 loss the other day. I don't know how much more time Derek Lalonde's going to get behind the bench there. I thought if the Canucks had scored on the late power play and it had been 2 games in a row on home ice where the Wings had surrendered 3 power play goals to their opponent and lost, that might be it. It might still be it. I mean, there's enough heat under his seat there. Whatever the case, when the Canucks get the late power play in the first period, it carries over. Elias Pettersson dangling, driving, it splits the defense. Like, that's what we've been waiting to see from Elias Pettersson. Draws a second penalty, so they get the 5-on-3. That was go time. Like, they had to score against this Red Wing team that can't kill penalties, and they did, not once, but twice, and turn this game, one of the times, they turned this game back in their favor.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it there with just the astounding. We've seen astoundingly bad penalty killing in this town. We know what that's all about.
We do.
But
we know what it looks like.
Oh my God! And I mean, really, that it meant so many ways. I mean, maybe it was your final question to Travis Green, and it really sank him. But that's what sank Travis Green more than anything that season, right? They could not stop the other team from scoring when they were down. The other thing that's interesting, let's go right back to that first point of yours about how there's been only 4 games where they've gone down 2-0. And, I wrote this the other day. Now, listen, you do not want to fall behind. And that was a huge part of last year's success, right? They fell behind 29 times, but like 82 game schedule, that's, they've done it more than 50% of the time so far this season. Yeah. Chasing the game is difficult because, that's one more goal you have to score that you didn't have to start with. It's also difficult physically because you're running at 100%. Like, you're going to get all kinds of injuries. Going way back, I remember talking with, of all people, talking with Willie Desjardins. I said, "Why did you guys have so many injuries?" He said, "Because we were chasing the game all the time." And it was an honest answer with him. You look at Brandon Sutter, all the weird. I mean, there's a guy that went 100%. There's a guy who got hurt all the time. Guys don't deal with those kinds of injuries the last couple of seasons because they haven't been chasing the game, at least not till this season. Now, the other point on that at the same time is if you look at goals in a game, there's sort of a certain element of sequence. We just get caught up in the sequence that the final score is the final score, and the order that the goals go in doesn't really matter, that the better team should win, blah, 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 blah. And I suppose right now you look at this team's road record and the way they performed on the road, maybe they've gotten a couple lucky wins. Of course they've gotten a couple lucky wins. But fundamentally, this is a team that has done enough most nights to get a win. And the funny thing is they've just happened to give up the first goal first.
Yeah, look, starts haven't been great, but it is ultimately how did you finish. It's not so much how you started, it's how you finish, and this team is finding ways. And the other day it was Connor Garland spinning around in the crease and putting a puck between his legs and winning the game in Buffalo. And here it was Elias Pettersson confidently carrying the puck into the Detroit zone, cuts to the middle, creates some space, and Jake DeBrusk does the rest from there. DeBrusk with a 4-point afternoon. He gets the assist or an assist on the Brandstrom goal that tied the game with under 4 minutes to play, and then at the 4-minute mark of overtime, it's Jake DeBrusk with his 10th of the season, his 3rd of the afternoon. Pettersson and Hughes both have 3 assist afternoons, so in the absence of JT Miller, we're starting to see guys elevate their play, and Quinn Hughes has been at a high level all season long, seems to be taking it to another level again, but Elias Pettersson certainly coming out of his shell offensively, as we said, split the D, draws the penalty to give them the 5-on-3. That was their first 5-on-3 goal of the season, by the way. And look, P.S. Suter had an opportunity on the breakaway moments before DeBrusk scored in overtime. So, yes, the Canucks start slowly, but an absolutely dominant second period in which, according to Natural Stat Trick, the high danger chances were 9-1. The actual scoring chances were 14-1 in the Vancouver Canucks' favor. So, it's funny because you look at a second period like that and you think, okay, absolutely one-sided, and yet the Canucks still fell behind in the third period and had to chip away and come back. So, again, so many twists and turns. It's great for a show like this one because we got lots to talk about. But, again, at the end of the day for me, short staff, I mean, that storyline has been played out here. We know that. No Hronek, no Miller, still no Thatcher Demko. And yet they're finding ways to win. So credit to them. It may not have been pretty throughout, but a win is a win, especially 4-1 on this road trip. Like, now basically just go into Minnesota and hey, take your chances, but whatever.
It's a successful road trip, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I kind of wrote this yesterday, but I mean, are we talking about Quinn Hughes enough? You know what I mean? Like that pass.
You didn't think we talked enough about the goal that he scored in Pittsburgh, but he just keeps one-upping himself. So like that's almost yesterday's news. But I hear what you're saying.
Like that pass to Pius Suter on like he passed it through like 3 guys, and it was just zip, and it hit him, and it was like the replay told the story, and I mean I noted this in my story. It was talking about that goal, the rush goal he scored against Pittsburgh, but we got so used to the button hook out by the blue line, create little extra space for himself. He does that everywhere now. He cuts to the lane. He's putting guys off. I think, in fact, right before he made the pass to Suter, he did exactly that. He dummied a guy basically going towards the boards, and the guy was just like holding on for dear life. I mean, forecheckers are barely hanging on. He's doing everything he wants. You're absolutely right. I mean, Elias Pettersson doing the things we want to see, but like Quinn Hughes just does this every night. It's absolutely astounding the way, there are all these kind of, is he back to his, is he really going to be able to repeat? He's going to do better than last year. That's the crazy part. I'm just absolutely blown away, and I am going to keep trumpeting this horn as often as I can because I think we all need to talk about Quinn Hughes much, 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 much more than we have already.
No, it's I've seen other people make the point, and I sometimes fall in the trap too. Like, we can't take him for granted. Like, just because his play is at this incredible level, up over 31 minutes in this hockey game, 3 assists. We're going to get to the 3 stars in a moment here. Spoiler alert, I don't have him as one of the 3 stars, and this is one of those games where it just kind of falls. I mean, obviously, DeBrusk was the first star with a hat-trick and an assist. No, but Elias Pettersson had 3 primary assists as well, so, like, how do you leave him out of this mix? I mean, I guess you could go all 3 of them, but, a game that had 9 goals. A couple of Red Wings stepped up as well. So we'll keep that for a sec, but it is an important point to make. Like, we're watching history in real time. Every time he steps on the ice, he's now alone as the assist leader in the franchise's history for assists. He matched Alex Edler the other day, 537 fewer games, and it's just going to be a career of these mind-boggling statistics. So don't take this guy for granted. We are watching one of the greats of the game unfold his career in real time before our eyes on a daily basis right now.
I found myself reading about Bobby Orr yesterday, just trying to understand and watching video and seeing what people are saying. And I mean, Orr was this pull away, gorgeous skater. He just skated past everybody, and it was next level. I mean, you look at the technology of the skates and the stiffness of the boots and everything they're able to do. But Kelly Rudy brought it up on the broadcast today. Just the way Hughes is shooting, and I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about this on Rink Wide, but I mean, I don't know if we've talked about that in person. I just love watching him load up to shoot. The sweep that he has on his shot, the way he directs the puck on net. I mean, there were multiple times tonight where his peers, I mean, they're not peers, his colleagues, hammering the puck into shin pads for no obvious reason other than say, and like, that's what they're used to. I get it, but like, look at what Quinn Hughes does. I'm not even saying you're not going to be Quinn Hughes, but just look at the way he's managing the puck at the blue line. He finds the shot when it's there. He's so rarely, if it gets blocked on the doorstep. It so rarely hits the guy out that's covering him because, I mean, so often there's no one covering him anyway because they can't. But I think fundamentally the way he has changed the game, the way, as you said, every night this is happening, the way he's changing the game is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, I mean, the final line on Quinn Hughes in this one, 31 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time, the 3 assists, 4 shots on goal, 10 attempts. So again, just controlling the puck in the offensive zone. And moments before Eric Brandstrom tied the game, Hughes had another one of those shifts that looked a lot like overtime the other day in Buffalo, or just side to side. And, guys are chasing him all over the place, cuts back, creates the space for himself. Like nobody in the league. Cale Makar does incredible things, and I want to enjoy both of these guys and what they do. I hate the comparison part of it. They do it differently, though. Nobody cuts back and creates space more and better than Quinn Hughes.
And like I said, he does it everywhere. It's just become, It is an astounding thing to watch. It is so much fun. We're so lucky to have it. I'm sure people are tired of hearing about him already. I've already put this campaign to talk about him more, and I'm sure people are already tired of hearing about it.
Well, let's get to the 3 stars of the hockey game, because I said he's going to get a real honorable mention with capital letters, but we picked the stars right at the end of the game, and we actually had to make an adjustment when the final buzzer sounded. So there you go, the rink-wide 3 stars. Jake DeBrusk, a hat trick. He's up 10 on the season, so that's the team lead. He also had an assist on the Brandstrom goal, so in on 4 of the 5. Loved his positioning. Just get to the front of the net on the power play goals, stand your ground, blue paint. That's where most of the goals are scored in the National Hockey League. He's not the biggest guy, but he understands the role. And remember, this is a guy that lost his assignment on power play 1 early in the season, and now with Miller out, the Canucks are going to have some decisions to make. But Jake DeBrusk is their leading goal scorer. You'd think maybe he gets another look on power play 1 when they're completely healthy, but cross that bridge when they get to it. So Jake DeBrusk, the first star. Elias Pettersson is star number 2. And Lucas Raymond is dangerous. He's the leading scorer for the Red Wings. He makes things happen when he's out there. He's a terrific young player. They've committed to him. And he's going to be a good player for a long time, but not able to take over this hockey game the way that some of the Canucks' top players were ultimately. So DeBrusk, Pettersson, and Lucas Raymond are your 3 stars. And again, a very honorable mention to the 3-assist man, Quinn Hughes.
I have to think Patrick Alvin sits back, looks at DeBrusk. I'm sure he's watching Rink Wide right now. And he sits back and looks at us picking DeBrusk and Pettersson, and he goes, you know what? I was right. Those guys were always going to work together. They really have found a groove. I found myself thinking about that there was a forecheck where the puck got rimmed around, and DeBrusk was just there, and he turned around and knew what to do. And, it's an adjustment period, always joining a new team. He's adjusted as well as could be expected. This is what the Canucks hoped he would be. 10 goals. The guy's well on his way to having a fantastic season. He's been a quality player in Boston. He's proving to be a quality player here. And the way he wants to play, he's a player that, the Canucks want him to be aggressive. They want him to get in on people. He's not, your sort of prototypical driving at a guy physically, but he's a guy that has great hands around the net. In many ways, I'm going to see what they want Nils Hoglander to be, I suppose. But the two-way hockey sense is there in a way that Hoglander's never quite had. And you know, the smarts on the wall, the stature, like the way he just uses his positioning, his ability in tight, in traffic, on the boards to just control the puck and support, whether it's support or whether it's lead the way. He's become a player who makes smart decisions all over the ice, and that's what Rick Tocchet wants, and you can see why he is thriving in Rick Tocchet's system now.
I want to talk about Rick Tocchet and his coach's decision and the challenge that looked like it might be a turning point in this hockey game, but we're not done with some of the individual performances on this Vancouver Hockey Club. 5-4 in overtime. The Canucks beat the Red Wings. They'll move on to Minnesota to wrap up the road trip on Tuesday. Rink Wide, a presentation in part by Greta Bar, YVR. Canucks out on this road trip. And again, if you're looking for places to watch Canucks hockey, keep Greta in mind. All the big screen TVs. There isn't a bad seat in the house. You got the arcade games, terrific street food. They've got weekly drink specials as well. We hosted our first Canucks Army watch party of the season there in October, and there's talk of another one in the works, so stay tuned for details on that. Greta Bar, the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar, let the games begin. Now, part of the Jake DeBrusk story, as we mentioned, no goals in his first 9 games as a Canuck, and then he went and he started scoring in California, and he hasn't stopped scoring on the road. All 9 of his goals have come in the 12 road games for the Vancouver Canucks, which is wild. They do have a 6-game homestand coming up here after the Minnesota game, so he is going to have to figure out ways to score at home. At Rogers Arena. But right now, and certainly in this hockey game, they'll take all 3 of his goals as it led to the Canucks victory here. But Pius Suter, these two have been going neck and neck sort of to who's going to be the first to get to 10 goals. At the outset of the season, if you had said, what are the chances that Pius Suter is in the race to be the first guy to double digits for the Vancouver Canucks, I would have thought you were crazy because, remember, Pius Suter got hurt in the second week of the preseason. He had a pretty quiet training camp. I mean, he's generally a pretty quiet guy. You don't notice him an awful lot, although what a start to the season it's turned out for him. But got hurt in Edmonton in a preseason game. Wasn't quite ready for opening night. When he did play in the second game of the season, he had lost his third-line center role to Atu Ratu. He started as the fourth-line winger in his season debut, and here he is, Pat, with 9 goals, including a goal that put the Canucks up 3-2 late in the second period. And this one, the 2-on-1 with Kiefer Sherwood, he held on the right side and snapped it home. He looked confident. He scored a couple of goals looking like that. And then I thought, all right, breakaway at overtime. Here it is. Like, this is going to be, he's going to end the hockey game. Ville Husso made the save there. But look, he's so versatile. We've seen that in his time as a Canuck. They've slotted him in all kinds of different spots. And again, you know, not the flashiest guy out there, but 9 goals, 23 games into the season for a guy who's never scored more than 15 in the National Hockey League. He's authored a pretty nice story here in the early going.
Unsung hero, Jeff? Is he the race leader?
Can I just cut it in like 6 different ways? Every day it changes, but he's certainly in the conversation.
He's such a, I mean, I think he's the definition of a classy player, right? Like, he just does things so well. That shot off the rush, holy smokes, was that ever wonderful to watch. And, you know, I mean, I guess the angle he came in on the breakaway, there wasn't really a way to do that. It was funny. I was talking to Woodley about people shooting on breakaways the other day. He goes, you know, goalies want you to deke. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, that's what they want. Because the shot's not as hard. It's easier for them to cover off that space. So I guess there's a lesson for the kids out there, and he proved why, I guess. I don't know. Dekes are more fun. But Suter, he's such a, you know, he's so, I have this, I'm sure I'm broadly stereotyping, but I've always thought of Swiss players as being so technically proficient. Just guys that do the little bits right. They can shoot, they can pass. They're great little skaters. He's that package. Like, he just is a nice quality player. I just love you reminding us all where he started the season. I've forgotten. Yeah, 4th-line winger, this completely forgotten spare part. He was, I mean, I think you actually had him as sort of one of your question marks. What is this guy going to be this year? Is there a role for him? And I mean, the role right now is filling in for JT Miller and doing a pretty great job at it.
No, absolutely. Like, I when they started training camp, I remember the press conference in Penticton the day before the start of camp, and I asked Rick Tocchet, I said, like, you know, you didn't re-sign Elias Lindholm, so basically it looks like Pius Suter is going to slot back in as your third-line center. He confirmed that then. I mean, that was the plan, and then plans change, obviously, and it kind of took a step back as preseason unfolded, but boy, he has roared to the front here. And you're right. It doesn't matter what they give him in the way of an assignment. He seems up to the task. Plus, he's one of the team's top penalty killers here in the early part of the season among the forward group at the very least. So, kind of underrated, understated part of his game as well. Because he's not a great face-off guy. And when you think of being like a true center in the National Hockey League, winning draws is part of the job description. But in every other area, he seems to excel. And so, for earlier in this trip, Connor Garland had been making all kinds of noise with his performance. A little bit more of a quiet afternoon in Detroit. Garland took that puck off the ear, missed the second half of the second period, that clearing attempt on the power play. He saw the blood on his jersey, but he's a gamer. You knew he'd be back in there. He didn't have a whole lot happening, but others did. And so, again, this has been a team road trip, and it's been a team effort, and ultimately that's the way it goes. And you said right off the top, Kevin Lankinen, maybe not at his very best. Hey, for a change, these guys pick up their goaltender, right? Like for everything that Lankinen has done, he rewrites the NHL record book, pushes his road record to 10-0 to start the season. Nobody has ever done that in National Hockey League history. So, again, I mean, we keep asking where would the Canucks be without Kevin Lankinen, even on a day when he wasn't at his finest. He outduels two goaltenders at the other end because the Red Wings were forced to make the switch. You don't see that often either. A goalie switch after the Red Wings scored was when Cam Talbot took himself out of the hockey game. They're saying a lower body injury, so we'll see what happens there. But that was another part to me, Pat, that Ville Husso hasn't played much in the National Hockey League this year. I know the broadcast had his record against the Canucks over the years, whatever. I never really understand why one guy owns another franchise the way that, like, Husso's 5-0, or he was 5-0 lifetime. I mean, he was with St. Louis at the time, like different teams, different times, whatever. He had success against the Canucks. He had only played a game and a half this year. He hadn't played an NHL game since November 9th. And so he comes into a 2-all game. Like, that had to play into the Canucks' advantage. That I thought, like, test this guy. Like, make him make some saves. They didn't, because they had an early power play when the goaltending change happened, and I don't think they had an actual shot on goal. But at the end of the day, I mean, Husso gives up 3, and that's kind of been the story on him. And Kevin Lankinen, he gave up 4, but guess what? He didn't give up the one in overtime. So Canucks take advantage of a Red Wings goaltender that has struggled and kind of looked that part this afternoon.
Got me thinking about March 9th, Jeff. Do you remember March 9th?
Which March 9th?
That's when the Canucks were up 4-0, and all of a sudden, none of us noticed they changed their goalie until several minutes later that Casey DeSmith was in net. No, I found myself thinking about that's the reason why I bring it up.
When Demko left last year against
that
Winnipeg,
bizarre, and none of us noticed. It was just like, wait, there's a new goalie. What the hell's going on? Anyway, but no, listen, the Canucks. They got, bottom line, this is one of those games, like on Friday, they got the job done. They're under pressure. They're missing guys. They're dealing with injuries. The Garland thing, I said to you, could you imagine if Connor Garland is forced from the lineup for whatever reason?
No.
He's been so important. He's not just, a candidate for unsung hero. He's candidate for MVP along with Kevin Lankinen to this point in the season. Like the way he has played, the way he's driven offense, I think what he's added to the power play, to be perfectly honest, this is a guy that dominated in junior and for whatever reason has forever had to scrap and fight to win his role on a team. And it's funny, I guess, that the guy that is giving him all the rewards is the guy that was his first coach in the NHL, who probably knows him best of anyone in the NHL, right? Rick Tocchet wants his guys to work. And once Connor Garland kind of, whatever it was that happened last year that decided to turn his sort of feelings around about staying in Vancouver, it's been a perfect fit. Obviously he plays, whoever he plays with, he makes better. He had that run. He, I think in many ways is part of the reason why Elias Pettersson finally got himself going. I mean, obviously he's not playing with him now, but Pettersson, 16 points in 11 games? That a lot of that's Jake DeBrusk, I think, and just Pettersson finding his way and figuring out how to play, even if his skating's still not 100%. But Garland, I mean, just a guy that's driven the bus no matter what's happened every night, and so for that stretch when he wasn't there, I couldn't help but wonder where we talked so much about Lankinen, but where would this team be without Connor Garland?
Yeah, and that line, Suter, Joshua, Garland, when they were together, 5-on-5, I mean, absolutely crushed it in this hockey game. Canucks only scored the one goal, that was the Suter goal, when they were on the ice, but just in terms of spending time in the offensive zone and puck possession, a wonderful day at the office for that line of Suter, Garland, and Joshua. But we saw that Garland missed the second half of the second period, so Kiefer Sherwood was forced to step up. He took a couple extra shifts in there. And again, it's that next man up that's serving the Vancouver Canucks. How long can they go? I likened it to a Jenga sort of puzzle where you keep pulling these pieces out, Miller and Hronek, and then Garland left for a little while. I mean, at some point, you know how Jenga ends, but this group is finding ways, and they're hoping that every win you put in the bag just gets you that much closer to some reinforcements getting back into the lineup. And as we said, one more road game to go on this trip in Mini, and that's going to be a handful against the Wild the way that they're playing. But even if the Canucks get smoked, and the way they're playing, I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, although Mini's done that to a lot of teams, but they've guaranteed 4 wins in 5 to start the road trip. So yes, absolutely a successful trip. Let's get to the stat that stands out. This one's a little bit different for us here, but it kind of brings us to a point that I want to make. And the stat that stands out is, for all the grumbling about the early start this morning, if people haven't checked their schedule, next Sunday, the second game of this 6-game homestand is a 1 o'clock start with Tampa Bay in town. And there's going to be a lot going on down around the arena and the stadium district with Taylor Swift. That'll be the final day of her Eras tour. So, but 1 o'clock. But look, they got a win out of the Buffalo game the other day. That was a strange start. This one even earlier. And so, hey, maybe we shouldn't be grumbling about the early starts. Takes the Canucks a little while to get going, but at the end, they do find a way. So, so that's a stat that stands out. The Canucks don't play many home matinees, but I think some people were surprised. I tweeted it out there. What? 1 o'clock next week? Yeah, 1 o'clock at home against Tampa next Sunday.
Whose idea was it to put 2 home games on the same weekend as the end of the conclusion, the finale of Taylor Swift's world-dominating 2-year tour? Whose idea was this? We have to deal with it on Saturday. Literally, we're dealing with it at the same time. I don't understand. What is going on?
2 weeks after playing a game up against Grey Cup. You're right.
Schedule. It wasn't like this was new.
Yeah.
Oh, Taylor Swift's coming. Shoot.
I know. How about take a road trip and just get out of town and let this thing happen? That's not the way it goes, though. Friday night against Columbus, head-to-head with the opening night of the 3, and then Sunday is an afternoon game, so maybe that'll alleviate some of the issues for people getting to the rink. But start your planning now is essentially my advice to you if you've got tickets, because it is not going to be easy to access Rogers Arena on either Friday or Sunday. The stat that stands out, a presentation of White Spot at White Spot. They're all about enjoying great, comforting food and spending quality time with loved ones. With the new comfort menu, White Spot is focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family and available now. Developed by the White Spot culinary team, the comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. New menu features mouth-watering new additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, home-style pot roast, and backed by popular demand, it's the iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal, perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. All right, let's get to this coach's challenge, because Canucks start the third period. They're up 3-2. Elias Pettersson takes a hooking penalty on Dylan Larkin, and Michael Rasmussen, who's an absolute monster. I'm surprised this guy doesn't score 30 goals a season. Just how big he is. We're showing the replay here on the live stream. I know you and I were texting back and forth. I thought it was going to stand. I've kind of given up on trying to figure out coaches' challenges, and my record's not great. Yeah. But I just think, you played so well in the second period. Yes, you give up an early goal, but there's still a ton of time. These are the Detroit Red Wings. You're in this hockey game. I thought that was a questionable decision by Rick Tocchet, that even if you play on at 3-3, you've got the rest of the period to try to get the go-ahead goal and still win this hockey game. Instead, you've given up a goal, you've given them some life, the crowd's back into it, it's a tie game, and now you're shorthanded again. For the guy that had the Midas touch last year and rightfully won the Coach of the Year, there have been some curious decisions. Let's be honest, around Rick Tocchet this year, and I thought that this was the latest. His team wins, so he kind of gets bailed out, but curious call on the coach's part, I thought.
Well, I mean, it's so much about the video coach, right? And I mean, Dylan Crawford. I said this on Blue Sky, has had a pretty good record on this, right? This was the first time they were wrong in 4 challenges. And when I saw the replay, I texted you right away. I said, I think this is coming back because the one standard that they're pretty consistent about. And I guess I get in hindsight why they didn't take the challenge, but you get in the crease. If you get in the crease yourself and you touch the goalie and you prevent him from playing his position, that's been the standard. Now, of course, in this, the contact happened before the actual goal, before the actual shot. It looks like Lankinen gets to reset himself. So I suppose from that regard, there was a bit of a, there is a gray area. And in general, I think the Canucks have been pretty cautious on those kinds of things. So that's why partly I was going, well, Dylan Crawford knows what he's doing. I mean, I think he only got it wrong once last year as well. So, but yeah, it wasn't curious. I mean, the sort of, the opportunity cost of taking that goal away was pretty crucial. That was a high leverage moment, right? That would have bumped it back to 3-2. So, the incentive there, I think in many ways is to challenge, but because of course the penalty is a literal penalty, that's why it doesn't happen as often. And I think that's one of those setups. I think the challenge rule in this case in the NHL, the way they've set it up, is the smart way to do it, because it's basically like, are you sure? And generally the Canucks have been able to say, yes, we're pretty sure on this one. It was a bit of a dubious and a bit of a gray area one. I suppose in the end surprised.
So they kill off the penalty thanks in large part to one of the great penalty killing shifts of all time by Noah Juleson. Like, absolutely heroic. For people that wonder about what keeps this guy in the lineup and what they love about him, you hear the term eating pucks. Yeah. Like, he feasted on pucks. Like, incredible. Just kept throwing himself in harm's way. You could see the first one absolutely stung him and sort of doubled over, and he's still standing in there, like, full props. Like, that's not easy to do. And, he's got his limitations, certainly, but in those moments, like, that is bravery on display for Noah Juleson. Now, so the Canucks kill off the second penalty. It's still 3-3, but then moments later, Nils Hoglander is the guy that's serving the penalty, not a surprise, gets a rare shift in the third period, gets in deep on the forecheck, and, he's under such a microscope right now that there were other breakdowns there, and off the rush, the Wings shouldn't have been able to gain the zone as easily as they did. Tarasenko with a nice shot kind of looked like Jake DeBrusk's overtime winner. But we look at Nils Hoglander, and if you watch the replay there, Pat, like, just coasting the whole way back. Like, he had a chance to make a play on Tarasenko in the neutral zone. He doesn't. He kind of just drifting off in no man's land. 10 minutes of ice time, so he did crest double digits, 10 minutes and 33 seconds for Hoglander, but he was on the ice for a couple of Wings goals. I don't know. Like, he's playing now like he's a guy that maybe wants out. Like, people are talking about the doghouse and stuff, but when he's getting these limited opportunities, he's doing absolutely nothing with them, and this was sort of a continuation. The ice time was a little higher than it was the other day in Buffalo, but still, there is nothing good happening for Nils Hoglander these days.
We love talking about having sort of interesting players on the edge of your roster, putting the kind of power play specialists, Daniel Sprong on the fourth line, keep them in the corner, keep them fresh so that when you need them on the power play or whatever, you get them in there. But Hoglander is, I think, right now an example of why that is such a hard thing to actually pull off, because it comes down to the player. And it's not that he's a liability, but you need something. I go back to a line that Ray Ferraro once said about Jake Virtanen, and it was basically saying, the moment they stop asking you to do more, pretty soon they start asking you to do less, and then all of a sudden it's over. And unfortunately, it feels like there aren't a ton of options right now, obviously, with the injury to Miller and right, shuffling some of the guys around and playing with the cap a little bit here, or the absence of Miller, the leave of Miller, and the injury to Hronek. Like, they're kind of forced. He's in the lineup because there's kind of no one else right now. But if there were an option, I still like him more as a player than Archie Bains. But Rick Tocchet likes Archie Bains. Like, would there be a change there? Would Hoglander find himself in the press box? He's been in the press box before. That's not a new thing. And I don't think it's a lack of sort of enthusiasm from the player. He has generally been a guy that wants to be there. I think he's a guy that just feels totally lost. I think he didn't have the start to the season he wanted. Now he doesn't know how to fix it. And, and as you said, he makes a mistake and it compounds on it, compounds on it. I continue to think about when I wrote a story about Hoglander early in the season because he had that nice first goal of the year. And I talked to Rick Talk, and I was not expecting, like you and I have seen, when Rick kind of stands up a bit taller. I mean, he glowed. He was so excited to talk about this young player that he does believe it. He wouldn't do that now. He would just be like, he's got to find his. I mean, there's a confidence issue here. There's a player that, it just isn't getting it right. Whatever he's doing isn't working. And, maybe he does. I don't think you want to think that he needs a reset, but maybe he does. Maybe he's going to have to go somewhere else. I mean, the Canucks are going to find that other defenseman that they truly want. I mean, he was always going to be on that radar. The fact that he is locked in at a certain price is maybe good, maybe bad. The cost control there should be a positive, but he's only got one goal. And right now, a one-goal scorer on a 3-year contract is not looking very good.
Oh, let's give him credit. He's got 2. He scored in both games against the Philadelphia Flyers.
All
right. So got to keep.
I just think about the one goal.
It's been bad enough. It's been bad enough around him, but he does have 2. But he hasn't scored in forever.
Yeah.
But I like if he's not scoring and it's 17 now without a goal, then what else is he doing? Well, on a day like today, 1 shot on goal, no hits. There has to be some sort of contribution, and I'm with you. Like he looks lost right now. Like guys go through slumps, but the NHL's a tough place to be lost, and it just feels like every shift right now you watch him. And again, he's being watched closely in this market because people realize that there's a lot of chatter around him, and he just kind of feels stuck, and that's a tough way to play this game and have any kind of success.
There were shifts earlier when it was him and Garland and Pettersson, right? Like the way Hoglander and Garland were forechecking, there was a lot there. I thought that was a line that was looked like it had a chance. I mean, Jake DeBrusk is a better winger, for at least better than Nils Hoglander. But when that was an early in the season look, I thought, there's some, he's at least getting in on the puck. He's not even getting in on the puck now, Jeff. Like he'll end up with a puck on the sideboards or whatever, but he's dishing it. He's not even looking to shoot. He's not taking the puck to the net. And when you're not playing a lot, I mean, this was something Daniel Sprong and I talked about early in the year, and he's used to this, this kind of situation. He was used to this kind of scenario where you can't squeeze your stick too tight. You just have to be ready. You have to know that this is the moment, that this is my shift. There may not be another shift. And it's not that you try to make more than there is out of the situation. You just have to get it right. And Nils Hoglander isn't the first young forward to struggle with. I mean, this was part of the Vasily Podkolzin story, I think, last year, was that there was another young player that just couldn't quite adapt to that sort of, okay, this is it. And not in a sense of, like I said, that this is everything, but this is your moment. You've got the puck, go do something. And he just doesn't seem to have that confidence in him right now. And I mean, maybe he'll find it, maybe he'll find it on Tuesday, but right now he doesn't look like a player who even knows how to find that.
And Vasily Podkolzin's now scored in 3 straight games for the Oilers.
Well,
we got Podkolzin highlights in the first intermission. Yeah. I felt like Sportsnet was trolling the Vancouver audience. They started with Leafs highlights. Of course, who didn't want those early on a Sunday morning? And then went into this, Vasily Podkolzin scored again. Now back to the Canucks game in Detroit. It was like that's the intermission. Anyways, that's for another day, I suppose. A couple other things I wanted to get to here quickly. Erik Brannstrom scores the tying goal. We talk about high leverage situations out there. Get the one-timer. His 3rd of the season at 16:40 as we watch the replay. Obviously, it's been a nice pickup. Pat, why do you think he doesn't get overtime shifts? Like, Carson Soucy got a couple of shifts in overtime. Overtime's about winning, especially against an Eastern Conference team. If you give up the bonus point, you've already got your single. Like, why wouldn't Erik Brannstrom get a shift or 2 in overtime?
Well, one of those ones where I wish we were there because Rick, but I mean, I think it's an interesting question. Certainly, like, think about last year, there was a lot of confidence in Soucy, and I have seen enough the last couple of games to start saying, okay, I think Soucy is finding his way back to the guy he wanted to be. Certainly the way he's been able to guide people coming down the wing defensively and push them behind that, use his stick to prevent that slot pass. There's a smartness and a sort of a two-wayness to his game that I think obviously is the instinct. That's why they like him for who he is. We know that Rick Tocchet certainly values big defensemen who can move. I agree. I mean, the idea that Brannstrom doesn't even get on once, a guy that can shoot and pass, like we've seen him handle the puck. The guy can shoot. It's not that you're going to, so, okay, he's not going to be taking these long bombs. All his goals have been these hammer shots, right?
You're right.
Right? Like, you're not doing that in 3-on-3 overtime, but the guy can skate. Like, he seems built for it. He is Quinn Hughes light. I'm with you. I wish we could get Rick on right now and ask him, and I'm sure he'd have a fast. Actually, have an interest. Or he'd be like, look, you know what? You're right. I should get him on there.
He would say that. He would.
You're right. That's a good point.
I mean, if it goes 5 minutes, Quinn's going to get 3 of the 3.5 of overtime. So you're not getting a ton of ice time in OT, but it's just a little surprising to me that Susie would be your next guy up in overtime. But whatever the case, Erik Brannstrom left his mark in this hockey game, tied it, got it to overtime, and the Canucks win it 5-4. And credit, look, I'm glad you brought up Susie because it just felt like for 20 straight shows here, we were always harping on him and the struggles across the board. Possession numbers all positive. He's out there for 1 goal, 5-on-5, 4, and none against. So that's a good afternoon when a bunch of goals are being scored. The flip side there is Vinny Desharnais, very much a depth guy, but he was on for 3 of the 4 Detroit goals. And there was the one that puck was in his skates in front of the net. And I know he's a big guy, and maybe it's harder for tall guys to fish pucks out of their skates. But the struggles continue for Vincent Desharnais.
He is what he is. I don't know. He is what he is, and it's what they have right now, right? Like they want him to be. He's been generally a pretty good penalty killer in Edmonton. That's why part of the reason they brought him in. They thought he'd be better than. I mean, somehow they thought he'd be better than what they saw against them in the playoffs last year. I will keep him around just for the banter and wit that we get.
Oh, he's an all-star when it comes to quotes and storytelling, for sure. But yes, in the absence of Filip Hronek, he's going to play probably and play. Didn't play a ton in the hockey game, obviously, 13 minutes and 5 seconds. So they're trying to limit him. But Detroit's a team that's kind of spinning its wheels a little bit. Canucks are going to see a real contender on Tuesday in Minnesota, and there's nowhere to hide when you're taking on a team like the Minnesota Wild, the way that Kirill Kaprizov is going. So.
We'll see how they look. The end, that's part of your question about overtime too, I suppose, is that you look at how they use both Brannstrom and Desharnais. That third pair didn't 12 minutes, I think, for Brannstrom, right? Like not a lot of ice. I mean, 5? I'm just looking at the shift chart here. It's 6 shifts for those two in the third period. Like just it's a guy. It's sort of like get on, don't make a mistake, get off. That's kind of where they're at, and I think they're just going to have to ride these top 4. Can I just quick shout out to? I mean, he's everyone's favorite screaming whipping boy, but Tyler Myers. Did you look at his Corsi? I mean, he's fit in very well. Plus 13 Corsi at even strength. Like he is not a long-term solution to play with Quinn Hughes. He needs to play less, not more, because he's better when he plays less. But he has been a decent partner for Quinn Hughes. And over the especially in the last couple of years, and so I just given what how they're having to lean on their top 4 like that, Susie Juleson obviously is one to lean on as well. For what those guys are able to do, they gave a lot. They're showing well. I mean, obviously the opposition helps. We'll see how things go on Tuesday. But Tyler Myers to me was a bit of an unsung story here. Yeah, there were a couple gaffes. I know I saw people screaming on it about social media, but the overall picture is not bad. I just wish he would.
What's funny, his afternoon, like at 5-on-5, 18.5 minutes of ice time.
Yeah.
As you said, the shot attempts were 23-10 in the Canucks' favor, 70% of the shot attempts, and yet the actual shots were 6-5 in the Canucks' favor. And the only goal scored was by the Red Wings. So it was one of those things where he spent a lot of time in the offensive zone. It didn't amount to an awful lot, and ultimately there was 1 goal, and he was on for it. But you want those types of days from Tyler Myers where he's spending more time offensively than he is defensively. Hey, we try and look at every aspect of a hockey game like this one. There's a lot going on here, so I've covered off most of my talking points. Like Danton Heinen's been a nice addition. He's been a pretty low-maintenance kind of guy. Not a lot of offense. He had the 2 goals in Chicago and hasn't scored since. Or no, check that. He has 1 goal since then in Anaheim. 3 on the season. But part of his role is penalty killing, and he just flat out has to make a better play than he did on the DeBrincat goal. came seconds after the power play or the penalty was over, but he had that puck on his stick. And even if it's a rolling puck, like a veteran guy, you got to get it out of the zone. Like you have to. He can't make that play, and moments later it wound up in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, results, they need more. You're right. I mean, he's fine. I think he is a player that, unlike DeBrusk, I think he's still a bit slow adjusting to the system. He's a guy that he's a steady, smart two-way player. You know, everything you've ever seen about him, and you know the glimpses that we saw, saved from him when he was in Anaheim, at the end of 1920. Do we actually even see him? I can't remember. Anyway, but you know, he's a guy that's been around. He's been a mildly intriguing player. I think he was actually a player, if I'm not mistaken. He might have been traded for Jake Virtanen. Two mentions for Jake Virtanen.
There was that talk at one point.
There was a chance that was. I can tell you that almost happened. I will tell you that anyway. But you know, a steady, competent depth winger. They just need a little bit more. And you're right. That simple play there. I mean, obviously he hasn't made too many errors like that this season, which is a good sign. But that's standing out, you know, and there's just not a lot of counterbalance. You know, it's a bit like the Hoglander question, right? You can accept the mistakes if there's something to counterbalance it, and there's just not enough. I mean, he's fine. He kills penalties. You know, the penalty killing has been basically competent, pretty decent this year. He started the season with JT Miller and Brock Besser. Maybe it was never going to be a fit. He's always been a third-line winger. They're asking to be a second-line winger. Talk about a guy now playing on the fourth line, right? Like he's been bumped down to the fourth line. So he's still finding his way. You want to think there's a little more spark in his game, maybe a little more sort of grind in his game. But
the big day is almost here. We've been talking about the sheet with Jeff Merrick. We've announced that Merrick's part of the Nation Network for a couple of weeks now. He gets his show, and it gets up and going on Monday, tomorrow. Live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel every weekday at noon Pacific. The Sheet's got you covered. Jeff's going to be diving into all the biggest storylines in the game of hockey, news and rumors, emerging trends, insights, all kinds of great guests, and he's one of the great conversationalists in the game as well. So looking forward to the Sheet, your destination for in-depth conversations with people shaping the game of hockey. Check it out. Starts tomorrow, Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, and you can follow the Sheet Hockey on all your favorite social media platforms as well, so that you do not miss a second. All right, we've talked about this for a while. That look, the Canucks have beaten a lot of the sort of middling to lower teams in the National Hockey League, especially out on the road. It's been a very friendly Canucks schedule away from home. That changes on Tuesday. They go into Minnesota. This will be the toughest test. Now, they did beat the defending Stanley Cup champs. I know that Florida was without Barkov and Tkachuk that day early in the season. And they were good in Los Angeles when they beat the Kings. I don't want to take anything away from the Canucks, but they have feasted on the Sharks and the Ducks and the Blackhawks and the Flyers and, you know, I was going to say the Penguins. The Penguins beat them the other day, but Buffalo...
Look out, they're 3 points out of a playoff, Jeff.
I know. My point being is that now they face the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday at the end of a long road trip. That's going to be difficult. Minis won 3 in a row, 5-1-1 in their last 7. They beat Nashville in overtime last night. They're 16-4-4 in the season, and as things stand right now, they're tied for the league lead in points with Winnipeg. The Jets are in Dallas later today, so that could change. But Minnesota, Pat's got the fewest outright losses in the National Hockey League, and Kirill Kaprizov leads the NHL in scoring with 38 points. So Canucks are going to have their hands full on Tuesday night.
These are, by the way, just selfishly, one of those games I'm always sad not to be in Minnesota. I've always enjoyed covering a game there. The atmosphere is fantastic. I mean, the atmosphere is fantastic. It's sort of top 5, top 3 places to enjoy a game, no matter whether you're covering it or you're sitting in the stands as a fan. And yeah, man, they play good hockey. Like Kaprizov is just such a talent. He's so exciting to watch the way he manages the play around him. It's going to be a big challenge for, as you said, this sort of road-weary, undermanned, what have you, Vancouver Canucks squad that's pulling out wins. I mean, who also are coming off 2 back-to-back overtime games. Like they played extra minutes twice in a row. That's tough. And the good news is that they get a day off. They'll, I assume, fly to Minnesota after the game today because they can get into the hotel. I assume they're staying at the St. Paul, the lovely St. Paul
Probably,
hotel. Yeah. And have a nice quiet Sunday in St. Paul. I don't know what else he would do. I don't know if they ever. I think, do they have a scheduled practice tomorrow? I haven't even looked, but yeah, I mean they'll get at it. Do you think?
I think they took the day off yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, but
So
the
they'll
end of
have
a
a
long
practice
trip
tomorrow.
Yeah,
they'll practice tomorrow.
Little skate.
Maybe we'll see Thatcher Demko, Jeff. Maybe that's the big practice that Thatcher Demko needs on Monday.
Wouldn't that be something to throw
Get
him
some
in
bumps.
against the Minnesota Wild? Because it's funny, we talk about Kaprizov leads the NHL in scoring, but really the way that Minnesota has done what it's done, they're the best defensive team in the NHL, and Philip Gustafson's a huge part of that. He's got outrageous goaltending numbers. And then, they made the David Jiricek trade yesterday, and they called him up, and so he may very well play against the Vancouver Canucks on Tuesday. So lots of moving parts there in Minnesota, and we'll see how things go. But at the end of a trip, that's going to be a difficult one. It was always going to be a difficult one for the Vancouver Canucks, and but hey, they're riding high. 4 wins in 5 games now so far after this victory in Detroit, and we'll see what they can do. Throw their best at the Minnesota Wild. Here's a oddball thought for you. Do you throw Artur Silovs at the Minnesota Wild? At the end of a road trip?
No.
No? Okay.
No, poor guy. No.
You got your 4 wins already.
Oh. No.
No? Okay.
No. They're there to win, Jeff. They're not there to make people feel better about themselves. Unfortunately, as much as you want Artur Silovs to feel better about himself, I don't think that's happening.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll see how the Canucks line up. Again, they're only carrying 12 healthy forwards, so if everybody got through this one unscathed, I would assume it's the same 12 up front and probably the same 6 defensemen, and Pat has said it's going to be Kevin Lankinen in goal, unless we get the ultimate wild card, but I don't think that we're likely to see Thatcher Demko at the end of it. That would be a tough start against the best team in the league with a team that has found ways to win, but at the end of a road trip like this one, I don't think that would be the start for Thatcher Demko. I keep seeing Friday against Columbus, if he's that close and ready to go. Home game, get a couple of practice days in before they get after it. So we'll see how things go, but just one other thing I want to mention before we wrap things up on this episode of Rink Wide. Black Friday has come and gone, but the deals continue here at the Nation Network. You can get your hands on Nation gear, whether you're repping the freshest designs or rocking the classics. This is your chance to snag all your favorites for 15% off. And we've got the My City collection, which has dropped, and it's part of this sale as well. Other fresh gear you don't want to miss. It's your shot to grab the latest styles and classics at unbeatable prices. It gets better. You spend over $200, and we're going to throw in free shipping. So don't wait on the sidelines too long. This deal is 1 week only. Shop now at nationgear.ca. All right. When they headed out on this road trip, I thought 3-3, the old conventional 500 on the trip. And then you say that generally because you think, well, make your hay on home ice. We know that hasn't happened for the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah. They don't have to worry about home ice yet. At the end of the week, though, they do come home. They start a 6-game homestand against Columbus on Friday, and then they've got the early game on Saturday against Tampa. The Boston Bruins come in on the homestand as well. So, there's storylines abound, obviously. But right now, it's one more out on the road. It's in Minnesota Tuesday, and we'll see how the Canucks fare. Imagine if they get a win over Minnesota, come home 5-1 off this road trip.
Calm down, Jeff. Well, but either way, listen.
Hey, their top guys are stepping up the way the Quinn is going right now. Hey, anything's possible.
Either way, we know that it's going to be a talking point for Rick when we see him I probably assume on Thursday. We've talked about this before. Why can't your team win at home? And he'll be like, he's just going to go, he doesn't rub his head, but he probably will want to. He'll be one of these ones. The thing about the schedule that stands out, and you mentioned already, was that, listen, they've played a lot of soft opponents, right? But whether you look at Hockey Reference, who say they've had the easiest schedule, or you look at some of the other ones who say they've had like the third easiest schedule, it's been a pretty easy ride for them so far. And the amazing thing is the way the schedule is structured, and when they play their opposition, they're going to, for instance, they have very few cases where they're going to be playing tired against a very good team, which they are doing in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. They've got a back-to-back in Utah, and Vegas, a place you and I have fond memories of. Vegas and Utah. And you're looking at a Golden Knights. Their Canucks are playing Golden Knights second night of back-to-back. They do not have many examples of this. The Canucks obviously have some tough opponents coming up, but the way things are set up, they're still not the tough. It doesn't like it counterbalances from here to being the toughest schedule in the league going forward. They have about an average schedule from the rest of the season. So this team has done nice things against the weaker teams in the league. Now they really do, like starting on Tuesday, they're going to start facing some top teams. They got Tampa next Sunday. They've got, I don't know what we think the Blues, but you got Florida coming in. You got Boston in theory. You got Colorado. Like it's a tough run here running up to Christmas. You go into Vegas. We get to see Travis Green again right before Christmas.
That's true. He'll be here. The Senators will be in on December 21st, Saturday night before Christmas. Yeah. Just quickly on the idea of the schedule. So as I look at the updated standings right now after this Canucks win in Detroit, the Canucks haven't visited any of the top 6 teams in the National Hockey League: Winnipeg, Minnesota, Washington, New Jersey, Carolina, and Vegas. They haven't had to go into any of those buildings. And of the top 14 teams in the standings overall, they've only been the visitors against the Kings and the Florida Panthers. So that kind of gives you a sense of the quality of competition that they faced on the road. And look, to their credit, those are the games that are on the schedule. That's a big part of the reason they're 13-7-3. Nobody can take those points off the board. So there are tougher challenges ahead. I guess that's the point, and one of them comes their way on Tuesday in the road trip finale. Pat, always fun getting you in and getting you on, and lots to talk about after a game like this one. So I'm sure we'll do a few more of these before too long. I'm not sure when you're next with us on Rink Wide Vancouver.
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to figure this out, but I'll figure it out. We're doing the same thing again, I think.
We'll do it again next Sunday. Irf will be back for the game in Mini on Tuesday. For Mike Rogerson helping out behind the scenes, for Patrick Johnson to Post Media, you can read all his accounts of everything Canuck there on the Province website. Jeff Patterson again. Thanks so much for checking out Rink Wide Vancouver. We'll talk to you on Tuesday as the Canucks wrap up the road trip in Minnesota.